Hello, welcome to Info TV. Today I'm going to be talking about the life of Hitler. Now, I understand this could be a sensitive topic to some people, so viewer discretion is advised. Now, before we jump into the video, if you want to go check out my other content, you can find me over at TikTok at info.tv13, which will be linked to the description, and you can also find my podcast that will also be linked to the description. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. Hitler was born April 20th, 1889, in Bayreuth, Austria. Hitler's father was a harsh and distant. He had a close relationship with his mother, and her death from cancer when he was 17 was traumatic for him. Hitler had a normal education as a young man. He showed no special talents. He wanted to study art and moved to Vienna after his mother's death in hope of being accepted to art school, but turned down for lack of talent. Adolf Hitler was then screened into the Austrian military service in February 1914. He was classified as a unit because of his athletic physical vigor, but when World War I broke out, he pensioned King Louis III to be allowed to serve, and one day after being submitted that request, he was notified that he would be permitted to join the 16th Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment. After some 8 weeks of training, Hitler was deployed in October 1914 to Belgium, where he participated in the First Battle of Ypres. I don't know, it's going to be above my head right there. He then served throughout the war. He was wounded in October 1916, and he was gassed 2 years later in the Battle of the Name Will Be There. He was hospitalized when the conflict ended. During the war, he was continuously in the front line as a headquarters runner. His bravery in action was rewarded him with the Iron Cross, second class, in December 1914. The Iron Cross, first class, a rare decoration for a corporal. In August 1918, he greeted war with enthusiasm as a great relief from the frustration and aimlessness of a civilian life. He found discipline and comradeship satisfying, and was confirmed in his belief in the heroic virtues of war. Discharged from the hospital amid the social chaos that followed Germany's defeat, Hitler took up a political work in Munich in May to June in 1919. As an army political agent, he joined the small German Workers' Party in September 1919. In 1920, he was put in charge of the party's propaganda and left the army to devote himself to improving his position within the party, which in 1 year he renamed the National Swastika Nazi. It was called Nazi. Conditions were ripe for the development of such a party, resentment at the loss of the war and severely of the peace terms added to the economic woes and brought widespread disconduct. This was especially sharp in Bosnia due to its traditional separatism and the religion's popular dislike of the Republican government in Berlin. In March 1920, a coup d'etat, I pronounced that wrong, I'm sorry, by a few army officers attempted in vain to establish a right-wing government. Munich was a gathering place for distant former servicemen as members of Franklin Corps, which has been organized in 1918 to 1919. from the units of the German army that were unwilling to return to civilian life for political plotters against the Republic. Many of them joined the Nazi Party. Foremost among them was Ishtvan Ram, a staff member of the District Army Command who had joined the German Workers' Party before Hitler and who was of a great help in furthering Hitler's rise within the party. It was he who recruited the strong armed squad used by Hitler to protect party meetings. The attacked socialists and communists and the exploited violence for the impression of strength given in a 1921. These squads were formally organized under Ram into the private party army. The SA Ram was also able to secure protection from the Bavarian government, which depended on the local army command for the maintenance of order and which tactically accepted some of his terrorist acts. Conditions are favorable for growth of the small party, and Hitler was significantly astute to take full advantage of them when he was joined the party. He found it ineffective, committed to a program of nationalist and socialist ideas, but uncertain of its aims and divided in its leadership. He accepted its programs, but regarded as a means to end his propaganda, and his personal admit caused a friction with the other leaders of the party. Hitler countered their attempts to curb him by threatening resignation and because the future of the party depended on his power to organize publicity and to acquire funds, his opponents relented in July 1921. He became their leader with almost unlimited powers. From the first, he set out to create a mass movement whose mystique and power would be significant to bind its members in loyalty to him. He engaged in unrelenting propaganda throughout the party's newspaper, the Popular Observer, acquired in 1920, and throughout the meetings, whose audience soon grew to handfuls to thousands. With his charismatic personality and dynamic leadership, he attracted a devoted crowd of Nazi leaders, men whose names today live in infantry. John de Efrach, who acted as a mentor for Hitler. Oh, I can't pronounce any of these names. They're in German. For anyone that's German, I'm mispronouncing these wrong. I'm sorry. And if anyone knows what I'm trying to say, I'm sorry. Please let me know in the comments, because I apparently don't know at all of what I'm saying. Got a notification of the latest news on Poland. Anyway, back into it. The climax of this growth of the Nazi Party in Bavaria come to an attempt to seize power in the Munch Beer Hall of November 1923, when Hitler and General Dietrich Ludendorff tried to take advantage of prevailing confusion and opposition to the Weimar Republic to force the leaders of the Bavarian government and the local army commander to proclaim a national revolution. In the melee that recruited, the police and the army fired at the advancing marchers, killing a few of them. Hitler was injured, and 4 policemen were killed. Placed on trial for treason, he carelessly took advantage of the immense publicity afforded to him. He also drew a virtual lesson from the putschers that the movement was archived power by illegal means. He was sentenced to prison for 5 years, but he only served 9 months, in those in relative comfort at Landesberg Castle. Hitler used the time to dedicate the first volume of Mein Kampf, his political autobiography, as well as his contempt of his multi-genuous ideas. Hitler's ideas included inequality among the races, nations, and individuals as a unchargeable natural order that excelled the Aryan race. As the creative elements of the mankind, according to Hitler, the natural units that mankind was in the Volk, the people, of which the German people was the greatest maneuver. He believed that the state existed to serve the Volk mission, that to him the Weimar German Republic betrayed, and morality and truth were judged by the criticism whether it was in accordance with the interest of preservation of Volk. Parliamentary democratic government stood doubly condemned. It issued the equality of individuals that for Hitler did not exist, and supposed that what was the interest of the Volk could be decided by parliamentary procedures. Instead, Hitler argued that the unity of the Volk would find its incorrection in the Führer, and known with the perfect authority. Below the Führer was the party was drawn from the Volk, and was in turn its safeguard. The greatest enemy of Nazism was not, in Hitler's view, liberal democracy in Germany, which had already been on the verge of collapse. It was the rivaling modernism, which for him embraced social democracy as well as communism, with its incentives in internationalism and economic conflict beyond Marxism's. He believed he would be the greatest enemy of all the Jew, who was for Hitler the incarnation of evil. This is a debate among historians as to where anti-Semitism became Hitler's deepest and strongest conviction, as early as 1919 he wrote, "Rational anti-Semitism must lead the Semitic legal opposition. Its final objective must be removal of the Jews altogether." Imam Gaddafi described the Jew as the destroyer of culture, a parasite within the nations, and a menace. Now, I'm going to have to stop it here. I wasn't planning on making this a multi-part series, but I ended up having to, because there's no way I could do this without it becoming an hour-long video. So thank you all for watching. Watch out for the second part. Subscribe, Go check me out. Everything will be linked in the description. And have a good day.